Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me today for this planning meeting. As you may remember, we called the emergency meeting once we received the responses from the interviews that were conducted a few short weeks ago. And if you recall, we had gotten some mixed reviews. So now that we've had a few weeks to let our initial reactions sink in, I thought it would be best to meet again and regroup. I have several plans that I would like to propose to you so that we can begin to remedy the problems that Museum XYZ has been experiencing, which ultimately led to the responses that we received during the interview process. So let's get started. I have set several objectives for our meeting today. The first goal is to review the key issues from the interview process, as well as take a look at some of the positive and negative remarks that were made during the interviews. I will then present plans of action and recommend what I believe is the best course of action. And finally, we'll set a follow-up meeting date and time for voting on which plan we believe is best. As you can see, we had a number of positive and negative remarks during the interviews from people saying that the building is just magical. They love our educational programs, specifically the ones for school children, and people enjoy that we are an institution devoted to this region. They consider us a cultural staple. However, we also had a number of negative remarks from people saying that they don't know why we exist or what our mission is. They don't really see why our tickets cost so much compared to other museums in the area, and some people just believe that our city does not even need this museum. Some of the key issues that we determined after the interviews had to do with residents being unaware of what the museum does and why we exist, being unsure of our mission statement. They believe that our managerial and general staff have insufficient museum experience and knowledge. They don't believe our strategic planning is consistent and does not include a clear plan for the future. Some people believe that the perceived value of the museum experience doesn't compare to the actual value of what our tickets are priced at. And also there were some comments that board members do not seem to have museum knowledge or know what's going on with the museum currently. Therefore, I have several proposed plans of action to present to you. Plan 1 being a rebranding of Museum XYZ in addition to updating our strategic plan and updating our mission statement, since that seems to be a big conflict within our consumers. Plan 2 consists of the board conducting a self-evaluation and creating a plan of action to remedy any problems noticed. Plan 3 is evaluating the museum's admission structure, and Plan 4 is determining if additional training is needed to educate museum staff, leadership, and board members. Plan 1, which is rebranding Museum XYZ, consists of taking a look at our current mission statement and determining if it is in line with what the museum is trying to accomplish today. Isn't relevant. We would review and update our current strategic plan to emphasize what our direction and priorities are, to identify our goals and milestones on the road to achieving those priorities. And finally, we would determine what steps can be taken to rebrand Museum XYZ to make it more current and attractive to the community. Plan 2 consists of a board self-evaluation. We understand that this is a commitment on your part, and we value each and every one of our board members, but it is helpful to conduct a self-evaluation on a yearly basis. It helps to take an honest look at how the board is functioning. And essentially, it's conducting a SWOT analysis of the board. What are our strengths, our weaknesses? What opportunities do we have, and what threats are coming against us? After that is done, we would create a plan of action that states what the board's malfunctions are and how to plan to address the problems in the future. Our third plan is to evaluate the current admission structure at the museum and take a look at why community members feel the tickets are not aligning with the museum's value. Is the perceived value determined to be less to our consumers than the actual value? We would review our current admission structure and determine what costs are associated with the ticket fees. Finally, our fourth plan is to assess if additional training is needed for museum staff, leadership, and board members. We have to discuss how we will determine if additional training is needed and what requirements we have for our employees. And we also need to determine if additional training is something that we're going to include in the budget on a yearly basis. Now that you have an idea of what our 4 plans of action are, I would like to give you my recommendations as a course of action. We should complete a board of directors self-evaluation to assess our current practices, goals, museum knowledge, etc. Contacting an outside consultant would also be helpful to inform the board of best practices in completing a self-evaluation. Next, we are to review our current strategic plan to assess if current goals are being met. What have been some of the weaknesses that could be hindering effectiveness? How can those weaknesses be translated into success? Next, we'll utilize our self-evaluation results to update our strategic plan to be more relevant with our new goals, objectives, etc. We'd make informed decisions about how the board can function in the most effective way possible. The new strategic plan can include plans to offer additional employee training and education, as well as assessing the museum's admission structure. Next, we would review our current branding and determine its effectiveness. In doing that, we would have to answer the following questions. Is our mission representative of the programming and services that we currently offer? Is there cohesiveness between our marketing efforts, mission, and vision? How can we make our efforts more reflective of the museum today? Why is it that many people don't know what we do or why we exist? How can we update our branding efforts to inform consumers what we are striving to achieve by existing? Finally, we would plan to conduct a qualitative evaluation that asks the same questions that were asked in the initial interview process approximately 1 year after the implementation of the new strategic plan. In review, Museum XYZ is at a point that we need to decide what actions need to be taken so we can continue to thrive and remain a cultural staple in our region. Again, the options that I have outlined for you are the best plans to follow for success. Those plans are Plan 1, which is rebranding Museum XYZ in addition to updating our strategic plan and, most importantly, updating our mission statement so that it's relevant and current to what we're doing today. Plan 2, where the board conducts a self-evaluation and creates a plan of action. Plan 3, which is to evaluate the museum's current admission structure. And Plan 4, which is to determine if additional training is needed to educate museum staff, leadership, and board members. And just to recap, my recommended course of action is to conduct the Board of Directors self-evaluation, review our current strategic plan to assess if current goals are being met, utilize their self-evaluation results to update our strategic plan to be more relevant, review our current branding efforts to determine effectiveness, as well as reviewing our mission statement, and plan to conduct a qualitative evaluation 1 year after the plan is implemented. At this time, I would like to set a date and time for our next follow-up meeting. At that meeting, we will vote on which plan of action we plan to follow and also determine what our next steps are. So please let me know if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you do have. And let's get down to setting our next meeting date and time. Thank you.